Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremonial. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining me today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Andrew Hoare. We warmly welcome the family of Major Peter John Badcoe, who are joining us for this evening's ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching this broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. We also welcome members of the Queensland Reds rugby team who are joining us this evening. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of the following school from Western Australia, Living Waters Lutheran College, Warnbro. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Major Peter John Badcoe. Peter Badcoe was born on the 11th of January 1934 in Adelaide, the second child of Leslie and Gladys Badcock. From early boyhood, his ambition was to be a soldier, and most of his hobbies, games and interests centred on the military. He was educated at Adelaide Technical High School. After gaining his intermediate certificate, he left school at the age of 15. He found work as a clerk, but he yearned for a life of action in the military, continually urging his father to permit him to enlist. 7 weeks in a National Service Training Battalion in early 1952 gave him a taste of army life. With his father's reluctant consent, he enlisted in the Australian Regular Army at the age of 18. 1 month later, he entered the Officer Cadet School at Portsea, Victoria. After graduating, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Royal Australian Artillery, with postings to a National Service Training Battalion and the 1st Field Regiment. The young officer was stocky, solidly built and robust. His commanding officers commended his tireless enthusiasm, professional capabilities and dedication, apparently unencumbered by his poor eyesight and heavy horn-rimmed spectacles. In 1956, aged 22, he married 17-year-old Denise Maureen McMahon in Sydney. Over the next 5 years, the couple had 3 daughters. He became a devoted father. His letters home were often addressed to "my darling girls" and mentioned how much he loved and missed them all. Promoted to temporary captain in December 1958, he worked as a General Staff Officer at Army Headquarters in Canberra. In 1961, he changed his surname to Badcoe. Returning to regimental duties, he served in Malaya from late 1961 to 1963 as battery captain with 103 Field Battery based at Tarandak. He was accompanied by his family during one of the happiest periods of their lives together. In November 1962, Badcoe briefly visited South Vietnam as a military observer. He joined South Vietnamese units on operations and in action and was impressed with the role of US Army advisors in training and leading Republic of Vietnam soldiers. The experience inspired him to apply for posting to the Australian Army Training Team Vietnam as an advisor. After attending advisor courses at the Intelligence Centre and Canungra, he arrived in Saigon in August 1966 to fulfil his ambition of joining the team, already regarded as an elite unit. Badcoe was initially allotted as sub-sector advisor to Nam Hoa district ofTua Tien province, where the war was almost constant and intense. His role was to train and lead 2 companies of South Vietnamese territorial soldiers. In December, he became operations officer, responsible for operations in the entire province. To his colleagues, Badcoe was a quiet but friendly officer with a dry sense of humour. He was an intensely private man whose wife remained his sole confidant. He neither drank alcohol nor smoked. Bored by boisterous mess activities, he preferred the company of a book on small arms or military history. In action, he seemed invincible, at the forefront of his troops, conspicuous in his red paratrooper beret. Badcoe quickly acquired an understanding of the Vietnamese people and an affectionate regard for the soldiers he trained and led. He traded spirits and souvenirs from the Australian canteen with American Marines in Da Nang in order to obtain equipment for his poorly resourced and provisioned troops. He also acquired food and supplies which he donated to a local orphanage. But he gradually grew disillusioned with the conduct of the conflict in Vietnam. He began to view it as an unwinnable war. After napalm airstrikes against a village occupied by the Viet Cong left 40 civilians dead or wounded, Badcoe spent 2 days trying to help survivors. The experience deeply disturbed him. Nevertheless, in 3 separate actions in early 1967, he performed feats of individual heroism which earned him the Victoria Cross. On the 23rd of February, during a small operation in Fuchu district, he ran across some 600 metres of fire-swept open ground to assist a territorial platoon. Taking charge of the unit, Badco led it in a frontal attack. He single-handedly charged an enemy machine gun post and shot the crew. He also retrieved the body of an American advisor killed in the action and then braved further enemy fire to rescue another who was wounded. On the 7th of March, the district headquarters of Queensland near Hue came under attack from a strong Viet Cong force. While commanding the province's reaction company, Badco organised and led a series of fierce assaults which drove out the Viet Cong and saved the headquarters. 1 month later, on the 7th of April 1967, he wrote to his wife, "It's time I came home. I'm getting bitter and cynical. I can see more and more good about the Vietnamese and less about the US advisors." This was to be his last letter home. That same day, he learned that the reaction company of the South Vietnamese 1st Division was in difficulty near the hamlet of An Tuan. Knowing that the company would be denied air support unless advisors were present, he drove there with a US Army sergeant. Finding that the force had fallen back, he took charge and rallied the men in the face of withering fire. Crawling ahead, he made several attempts to silence a machine gun with grenades. At one stage, the American sergeant pulled him out of the line of fire. Rising again to throw another grenade, Badco was shot and killed instantly. For his feats of gallantry and leadership, he was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross and the United States Silver Star. The Republic of Vietnam awarded him its National Order, 3 Crosses for Gallantry, and the Armed Forces Honour Medal. Peter Badco had been an inspiration to his Australian, Vietnamese and American comrades in arms. Attendance at his memorial service in Hue was the largest that could be recalled for any Allied soldier. He had confided to his wife that he believed military funerals were horrendous for families, so he preferred to be buried in Tarandak Military Cemetery in Malaysia. His headstone bears a simple, poignant inscription provided by his widow: "He lived and died a soldier." Peter Badco's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among more than 500 from the Vietnam War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Major Peter John Badco, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.